What's causing that? What do you think? Because Blumhouse at one point, you could pretty much guarantee that their films were good. Some were really, really good, but they were always good. But
It's just that it feels like they're just churning them out for churning out sakes. Because there's another film on my list, which I'll throw it out now, because the way I've done my list, because over the course since we last time spoke up to this point, I've seen 26 films.
yeah,
which is the most I've ever seen on one of these shows. So I've seen 26 films, and so I've seen the other big Blumhouse film, which is Afraid,
right.
AFR capital A capital ID. So it's the AI film, and they seem to be concentrating on that kind of thing, the AI kind of Megan-esque
Yeah.
Five Nights at Freddy thing, and it's failed in every single one, very much the same as Afraid. Because Afraid is just about a rogue AI, and it just is no tension. There's nothing in it that makes it an interesting film at all. And I threw it in because I've got a list of important films and quick hits, and so Afraid is a quick hit film because it's not a film that is actually going to be on anybody's lists of being the best and worst. It's just a completely forgettable film. And that's what they've been doing. They've either been doing really bad films or very forgettable ones. And so this has been, speak no evil, the best film they've released in a little while. They just need to reel back a little bit and concentrate before actually releasing their next stuff.
I don't know how many they've released this year or whatever, but I suspect if we go back 5 or 10 years and look to see how many Blumhouse films come out in any given year, I would suspect it's ramped up a lot now compared to like 7 years ago. 7 years ago, it's probably like 2 or 3, whereas this year it's probably like 8 or 9, and we're only in October. So if not
the
more.
new Lionsgate, which is again Lionsgate, I'll get into one of their films a little bit later on, but Lionsgate again are shooting themselves badly in the foot.
I saw Borderlands.
Why?
It's awful.
It is.
It's because so often I've always said to you, it's like if you recommend a film, I'll probably watch it. But if you say a film's terrible, it's not necessarily going to put me off. I'll still go in and see what I think of it. And often I will like a film that everybody else hates. I saw The Crow and I really like that film. It's like, oh God, I liked it. I'm not putting that on the internet. They'll kill me. And I watched Borderlands. I went in. I'm like, I'm going to see. It can't be as. Yeah, it is. It's just. I've played the games. The film looks like the game. The world capturing's brilliant. I thought I'm like, this looks like a Borderlands game. The cast are good names in there, but I just didn't give a crap about anything. I'm like, I don't even know what they're doing. I give up. I think I made it an hour and 15 before I thought, I'm sure there's something else I can be watching. But is it as bad as everybody says? Yes.
You can tell it's been messed around with.
Yeah.
So bad. You can tell because, as I said, when I relayed my thoughts in regards to it, Eli Roth stepped away from the film at the end of 2022, early 23, because he wanted to go off and direct the sequel to Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving did actually really well. And so he wanted to concentrate on that. And so they brought in Tim Miller. And unfortunately, Eli Roth's idea was to make it a hard R film with lots of blood, lots of gore, lots of stupid humor, like the video game. He wanted to make it like the video game because he's a big fan of the game itself. Whereas Tim Miller and the studios had a completely different idea. So they just wanted to make it to fit a wider audience, which the games is rated 18 anyway and M for mature. It's not rated PG-13 or 12. No. And Tim Miller was brought in and absolutely chopped the film to bits. That's why I don't blame Eli Roth for it. And a lot of people have thrown the blame majorly on Eli Roth's lap. It's not his fault. I would like to, in this instance here, see what his vision was, but that's never going to see the light of day at all, ever.
No.
And so his idea and what was on the screen was not, in my opinion, the film that Borderlands was going to be. Because Borderlands need to be made into a movie? No.
No, I don't think it did either, and I love the games. Because we've seen Eli Roth's movies, and some we prefer to others, but the guy can make a movie. He knows how to make a film. And you're looking at Borderlands, you're like, you wouldn't even know that was. Give me a list of 20 people you think might have made Borderlands. You would never come up with Eli Roth as one of those names, ever.
Even when he's making a film that's slightly watered down to the normal content that he's doing, like The House with the Clock on the Walls, because it is more aimed at the Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark kind of audience. Even with that, you can still see his fingerprints on it because it's got that horror element to it.
Yeah.
And so you would just think, if you're going to bring a director on to direct a film based on a video game that's aimed at adults, That's an 18 rated game, an M for mature game, and you're bringing a director on who's known for making violent films. Let him create what he's going to create. Don't let him create something and then you just look at it and go, well, that's not what we wanted, and we'll get a different director on, we'll get Tim Miller on, and we'll just absolutely rip this film apart.
Yep. So yes, it is as bad. Don't bother watching it.
No.
So what else you watch? What have you got on your
How
list?
long have you got?
Where do we start? I've got a few, so we'll do some of yours, and then we'll jump backwards and forwards on mine.
Well, we'll leave The Moors a little bit because we can finally talk about it, both me and you, because we've both seen it. The Moors, Adam Mawson's The Moors, and not The Moor.
Yeah, he was well confused when I'm like, Stu Miller's watched it. He watched it back in May. He's like, God, I watched it in May. I'm like, that's what he said, but you know.
I hadn't finished it back then, but yeah, that's the difference. One's got an S on the end, the other one doesn't. Yeah. Simple as that. So I'll go through a couple of me quick hits because these are a few of the films that you'll have probably never seen, or some of them you'll have never heard of. So I'll go through that because a lot of films in my important ones, especially a couple of them, you'll want to actually have a little bit of a conversation in regards to it. So I'll throw a few out. So a small British film called Devil's Punch Bowl, which is on Amazon. Compared to the quality of the movies, the Devil's Punch Bowl is absolute garbage. It's a British film, very small British film, killings happen in a small town. You see the killer maybe once or twice through the film. You see a couple of murders here and there. It's not inventive at all. It's just a snooze fest, an absolute snooze fest. One film I'll talk about in a second because it's probably going to be my worst film of the year.
Oh, no.
That's if I throw Murderville out, which I think I'm going to, because again, you can't officially watch that film. This film, you can, but I don't know if I'll even include this one, so I'll come back to it in a second. Sticking on the British one, there's a film called Law, Lore.
I've seen that advertised, yep.
Which is the portmanteau kind of British film, 4 stories within inside one, very similar to VHS Beyond. I quite liked Law. It's all, each one of the films, very, very, very minor budget, tiny budget, but there is a couple of decent ones. It's just a group of kids or group of teenagers, young adults, who supposedly are going on this really spooky weekend, and they're told to tell a story, a horror story. There's one set in a factory. The final one is set in the cinema, which actually I really like that one. It's about a serial killer in the cinema. So yeah, I quite liked Law. It's not bad. A film where a lot of horror fans are screaming at to see Beazle. Again, it's a film that's set inside of a house, but it's told in 4 different segments from different periods of time by different families who have actually moved into this house, and this malevolent witch who lives in the basement of it. It's not as good as a lot of critics said it was, or a lot of people saying it was. It's not as gory. They said it's extremely gory. There's very little gore in it, in my opinion. It's okay. It's fine. I like the setting. I like the idea. The execution's not the best. Cuckoo.
Yep, it's on my list to see. Yep.
Which is the Dan Stevens film. Is it as cuckoo as the title suggests? Not really. But Dan Stevens, when he can do off the wall, over the top insanity, he does it really well. So it's not bad. It's not as brilliant as, again, a lot of people make it out to be. So just to temper your expectations a little bit in regards to Cuckoo. Mm-hmm. I did like the premise. The acting is actually really good. Doesn't overall, the ending doesn't feel cohesive, but it's still a watchable film. Don't Let Go, the new Halle Berry film, directed by Alexandra Aja. I treat it more like a drama than a horror. Just a family living in the middle of a forest, and they need to actually connect with each other, stay together because supposedly something bad is out there. Thinking it very similar to The Happening.
Is this the one where she's like not letting the kids go out of the house or whatever because there's something? I might have seen a trailer for that.
Yes, they need to be attached to each other via a good performance by Halle Berry. Decently directed, good setting. It doesn't. Again, it falls apart a little bit in its overall construction, but it's not bad.
Where does it sit in the Aja filmography? The lower end or the middle, or?
I like Aja as a director. Yeah, again, I think he's one of those brave directors. I think it's sort of like middle to low end, because I think his Hills Have Eyes and remake of Maniac are in the top end of his stuff, because that's when he's allowed to just go hell to leather.
I like his Piranha movie, one of those.
So do I.
It was great.
I saw that in cinemas, in 3D as well.
Nice.
But the Hills Have Eyes remake is nastily gory and violent, and I really liked it because of that. Hostile Dimensions, again, it's a British film which you might have heard of. It's about a door that these couple of people who were sort of like working on a thesis find this door that enables you to go between different dimensions, and each dimension, it's very timey-wimey kind of film where each dimension is a version of the dimension that you're in, but with a slight difference to it. And so one person has gone missing. So a girl from the sister of one of the characters has gone missing, and they need to try and discover which dimension they might have gone through this door. It's okay. It's a good idea. It's a very, very good idea. Very low budget film. Very good idea. I think it's one of those films where it needed a bigger budget.
Yeah.
Because one of the enemies in it is just a black suit with smiley, bright fluorescent teeth. So there's that. Vischer, which is a film that I was interested in watching, but again, it's one of those films very forgettable. The Deep Web Murder Show, which is just another one of those films where it's just about people watching murders happening on the internet and getting a bid on them, whether they want the person to die or not. And a group of stupid teenagers need to survive. It's a very stupid film. Name the Demon, which is a film that I really wanted to watch because I saw the trailer about 3-4 weeks ago. I was very eager to watch. It's dropped on Tubi, so it's free to watch. A few priests go to this house where this woman is possessed, and they need to try and actually help her. It's supposedly shot in one take, because the way they do it is they put it's all shot on a camcorder camera. The time of how the battery levels left in the top corner, right hand corner, how long the film's been going for is in the top left hand corner, and that's the full runtime of the film itself. The people in this film are absolutely stupid. They are idiots. The dialogue is awful. The character development is awful, but it has a couple of decent scenes. There was one scene where one of the priests has gone down into the basement to try and find the fuse box because all of the lights have gone out. He spends 10 minutes in it and he makes stupid decisions. Like, there's a bit where he takes the camera, puts it down on the floor, just to look at some paintings. It's just
okay,
what? There's a possessed woman upstairs who's going to rip out your throat, and you're more interested in going, ooh, there's a doggy in this one.
It's a bit like when people put their weapon down just to go do something. You're like, no, keep the weapon in your hand and still do something. Stupid people in movies.
Exactly. And then the last two on my quick hits list, it's What's Inside. That's on Netflix. Again, critics have been harking on this as an interesting film. It's an interesting idea. Again, it's about a group of students and teenagers who go to this house for a party. One of them has this machine which enables them to switch bodies. And they play a game where you've got to try and discover who's in whose body. That's all I'll say about the premise, because the premise is an extremely brilliant premise. It's one of those films where the premise just outshines pretty much everything else in the film, because the characters, every single one of them, are so frustratingly annoying. I hate it when a film does that. Fine, have one or two characters where they're annoyingly frustrating. Maybe 3 characters with that, not all 7.
No.
Because it just means you've got a headache by the end of it, because they stay frustratingly annoying from beginning to end. So I like the premise, like the idea. You just need to work on the character development.
Hate the characters.
And then Hold Your Breath, which is on Hulu or Stars over here in the UK. I know people say Disney Plus, but it's Stars over here in the UK. It's the Sarah Paulson film about her living in the Dust Bowl. It's set in the Dust Bowl in the 1930s. In America, she lives in a house in the middle of pretty much nowhere. Husband's gone away to war or somewhere where it's not fully explained where he's gone. She needs to live with her family, and something happens. Good idea, good acting from Sarah Paulson. Just the overall execution, it's just lacking. It just lacks on the execution. But it's on Hulu or Stars if people are actually interested in watching. Okay. So there's my quick hits.
My quick hits, I finally got around to watching Trap, the M. Night Shyamalan film. I enjoyed it. And again, the internet kicks the crap out of it, and generally does with most Shyamalan stuff. I thought it was fine. I like the Shyamalan movies because they're like feature-length versions of some Twilight Zone episodes. You go in, you see a unique story, and then you jump out again. You go, right, what's for tea? But I enjoyed Trap. Insidious, The Red Door from last year. We finally caught up with that one. I don't think it's the best Insidious movie. It's probably the weakest one, to be fair, but I enjoyed it. I did struggle at going, what the hell's going on, quite a few times, because it's been a couple of years since I've seen the other Insidious movies. But I quite like The Red Door. Just weird and very odd, and lots of, I don't know, it was just odd, but I quite like them. The Blair Witch Project stuff, Zodiac, which is more drama / thriller than horror, but it is about a guy killing people, so you can sort of slide it into the horror section. The David Fincher film, and I hadn't seen it, so we sat down last night and watched all 2 hours and 40 odd minutes of that one. I think it was the director's cut that we watched, which is like 8 minutes longer or something. Good movie. On Netflix, there's the second season of Monster. So the first season was Dharma. This is about the Menendez brothers. We watched the first episode, which we enjoyed. The thing is with Dharma, you can understand why they strung it out to like 8 episodes, because it's quite a long time period and there's lots going on. I don't really know too much about the Menendez case, but it's like, okay, I'll be interested to see how they can string this out to 9 episodes. Mm-hmm. I've avoided going online and looking up stories about the case, because it's like this time next week we'll have watched the whole series, so I can then go investigate. But so far it's pretty good series. And then Speak No Evil. That's mostly the horror ones. I have watched 3 non-horror movies this month so far. I watched Wolves, which I think you've watched.
Yes.
As well. What were your thoughts on Wolves? I like the cast. I think Clooney and Pitt are great. I like just watching them hang out. I thought the film was fine. I enjoyed
pretty much
it.
What I thought.
And then that was it.
I felt like the chemistry between both Clooney and Pitt is just fantastic. Mm-hmm. They are fantastic together. They needed to be in a better film.
Yeah,
a much better film, because the film, pretty much everything else about the film itself is very weak. It's like it was second fiddle. Like John Watts was told, by the way, we want you to do a film. We've got Brad Pitt, George Clooney, create a film, and so everything else just seemed superfluous to those two, and with those two people and actors as with the strength that they have, you need something a lot more stronger than what you've created with Wolves.
Yeah. I mean, I know it is technically a TV movie now. It was hopefully going to be a theatrical movie. Clooney was unhappy that it didn't become one. It looks and feels like a TV movie, like a film Definitely that was just made for streaming, doesn't it? Still good, but it's just like, it's not as big as you think a film starring Pitt and Clooney would be.
It's average. I felt the film itself is average. It just lacked any kind of impact, any kind of punch. The only time I felt like there was a bit of punch to it was in the last 10 minutes. There is a scene in the last 10 minutes where you can sort of like, it is a violent scene, and where it ends in the diner. Not give too much away, just say it's a diner. Where it ends, there's that kernel, there's that thing there where it feels like it's the ending to a much better film. Because there is something there between them, like getting them to have that give and go between each other. That works. It works really well because they feed off each other like that. They're like two scribbling brothers. But again, you need a much more powerful, much more stronger film than what unfortunately Wolves is.
And I mean, it's not going to be my best of the year. It's not going to be in the worst either. It's in the middle. It's a 2.5, 3 out of 5 type movie. Probably 3, but it was good.
It's on my forgettable list.
And then I rewatched Elysium, the Neil Blomkamp film, which I do like. I think it's great. It's a great soundtrack. I just like the whole premise. So I rewatched that. And then Annette and I watched a film that I'd never seen before, Tim Burton's Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. I had to write it down because that's a gobful, that title. I'd never seen Miss Peregrine's before.
I have. I've even been on. There's a scene in it which is shot on Blackpool.
Yeah, there is.
On the pier, and I've actually walked on that pier where the exact same scene was shot. It was on one of the windiest days ever, and being in Blackpool on one of the windiest days ever, it's probably not the best.
No.
We were sitting in a cafe having some food, and there was this woman just getting blown down the street.
Yeah.
Why did we come here? It was for a stag do, actually. Just why? Why would you go to Blackpool even for a stag do? But It was a cheap idea, and yeah, we walked on the pier where the couple of scenes in Mrs. Peregrine's Home of Peculiar Children were actually set.
But it's good film if you like things like Spiderwick Chronicles and your Narnias and all that sort of stuff. Then Golden Compasses and whatnot. But I didn't realize it was Tim Burton because it was like Bob, friend of mine, came over on Sunday and he said, "Oh, I've got some of your DVDs you've loaned me." I'm like, "Which one?" I had no idea. I've seen him for 3 years, so I had no idea which ones were coming back. And he came back with this huge, two bag for lives filled with Blu-rays. I'm like, "The hell's in these?" And Peregrine's was one of those. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'm improving that." And so we sat and watched it, and it was good. So I enjoyed that. So back to you.
That perfectly leads into Beetlejuice.
Yes.
Because I've seen Beetlejuice. I saw it just after we've recorded the last show. So it's actually pretty decent. It's pretty decent. Everybody is pretty much back, apart from a couple of characters. Michael Keaton has been given exactly the same amount of screen time as he was in Beetlejuice, so 17 minutes. Hasn't been given anything more.
That's crazy, isn't it? When you think he's a title character, you're like, okay.
Exactly, but again, he's just brilliant at playing Beetlejuice. You could not see anybody else playing him. Could not. Just everybody else involved. Winona Ryder, really good in the film. Jenna Ortega is really good in the film. Just the whole film itself is probably what you would have expected from a Beetlejuice sequel. Yeah. It's entertaining. It's not as entertaining as the original because I really like the original, but still, there are elements. You watch a few scenes and you think, they managed to get away with that on a 12-year because it's a 12-year certificate in the UK, and there's a couple of scenes where a couple of young children will be scared out of their minds in regards to it. Yeah. But the story isn't strong, but the overall entertainment is, and that's pretty much what you want to watch it for.
So is this because it's like Tim Burton's he's hit and miss, I think, over the past bunch of years for me anyway. It's like I can't remember the last really good Tim Burton. It's probably Peregrines, to be fair, if I'd have seen that at the time. But a lot of his film, like Dumbo remakes, doesn't feel like Tim Burton and so on. But this is good Tim Burton back again.
It's not best Tim Burton, because best Tim Burton is his older stuff. He's Beetlejuices and he's Edward Scissorhands and stuff like that. That's best Tim Burton. This is actually watchable Tim Burton. Yeah. This is Tim Burton entertaining Tim Burton. Like a good Saturday or Sunday afternoon kind of entertaining film, Tim Burton, because
is it like Big Fish?
Got work the next year.
Big Fish, Tim Burton.
I didn't like Big Fish.
So. You don't like Big Fish?
No. Yeah. But it is that kind of one where you just want to watch it because you're at work the next year or you've got something horrible to do the next year and you just want to switch your brain off a little bit, kind of Tim Burton. It's that kind of entertaining Tim Burton.
It's good that it's not a terrible film because you know how much the internet loves tearing things down. And I've seen a few people tearing down Beetlejuice. Oh, just nostalgia. Yeah, that's kind of the point. That's what you want from Beetlejuice. I don't get what else you would want. And when a film comes out and it's terrible, it makes me sad because it's like the internet trolls just go, yay, look, we can just pile on this one. So I quite like it when they're wrong.
Definitely. I'm keeping 3 films to last because there's 3 films I'm going to sort of like couple together because those are probably the ones where you want to hear about them the most. There's an Australian film which I'll recommend people to watch called Violet, which is about a woman who is living with her daughter and she starts to see really strange, weird things. It's a very, very good film, very tense film, very sort of like film which draws you in, latches you on to the characters themselves because the plight of the moment, you sort of like believe that our insanity is taking over, and the way the insanity is actually done is very imaginative. So I do recommend Violet if people can find it. Just also like Strange Darling. Again, it's one of those films where a lot of critics have harked on to say it's a brilliant film. Definitely worth a watch. It's very violent. It goes ways you would never expect. So there's like twists and turns in the film where you would just not expect. It's one of those films where you think you've got the handle of the movie. Like you can guess the way it goes. No, you're completely wrong.
Are you able to say what genre it's in, or would you just say horror?
It's sort of like it's a thriller kind of movie. It's a quirky. It's got a sort of like a malevolent, twisty thriller kind of feel to it. It's not a horror film. There is violent scenes in it, but it's not a horror film. It's more on the thriller kind of things. But it's definitely worth a watch because, as I said, it's unpredictable. It's an unpredictable thriller. The ending, the last 15 minutes, it goes in so many twists and turns. It's like a bag of pasta. It's just so many twists in it. So I do recommend people watch Strange Darling. And then just completely left field is a film called Kill.
It's a Scottish one, isn't it?
No.
Is it not? It's a different one.
Yes, there's two films called Kill. There is the Scottish one, which was the one I wanted to watch.
Yeah.
But then this started. This is the Indian one on the train.
Okay.
Yeah, this one actually got a theatrical release. The Scottish one hasn't. The Scottish one is just about a couple of children who sort of like take their father into the woods and want to kill him. That's the Scottish one. The Indian one is The Raid on a Train.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah.
It is. It's a film where at the start of the film, it's a Bollywood movie. It's an Indian action film, the highest grossing Indian action film of this kind, and it is just about one character who's going to marry somebody they're going to marry. They're going away. He ends up on this train. She gets killed, and it's up to him to actually kill pretty much everybody on this train because everybody on this train is evil and horrible. It's extremely violent, really violent. If you love your sort of like films like The Raid and that kind of films, definitely worth a watch for that because there are some imaginative ways of how the director is able to establish the violence in such a small, encased space. Because I think in The Raid and Raid 2, you've got places like kitchens and rooms and even in a car. With this, you're limited to train.
Yeah.
So sleeper trains as well. So if you know what sleeper trains are like, there's bunk beds on either side. So you're limited to that kind of thing. And he never branches away from it once he gets to the train part where the violence happens. Because for the first 20 minutes, it's a very typical build-up kind of thing. When the film begins is when the name of the film shows up on the screen. So the name of the film doesn't show up on the screen until around 20, 25 minutes into the movie. Yeah. That's when it starts the name Kill. Once the word kill begins, that's when the killings happen. And that's when it just doesn't stop.
Nice.
So if you like that kind of film, if you want to watch a film where it's just nothing but violence and people getting killed in very nasty ways, then watch Kill.
Watch that one. Okay.
So don't get it confused with the Scottish one. No. This is the Indian one.
Very different.
Unfortunately, unlike with the Moor and the Moors, Kill and Kill have exactly the same title. There's no Kill and Kills. It's not The Kill or Kill. It's just Kill and Kill.
They're just very different. Yeah, very different films by the sound of it.
Yes. Salem's Lot, which I did say I've seen. I didn't like it nowhere near as good as the original.
I've seen quite a few versions of that over the years. I'm looking forward to watching the new one, but it's not going to be.
It's very forgettable. It's majorly CGI heavy, really badly CGI heavy. There is a scene which involves one of them going up against a vampire, and the CGI is awful. It's extremely CGI, but it's okay for what it does.
I mean, it's nice that we get it as well because that was very close to being tax written off by Zaslav, wasn't it? So yes. I'm quite happy that it has come out, so we can make our own minds up.
Out on Max in America, which I used a VPN to watch it. It's out in cinemas over here, though. Yeah. Next week. Okay. Or Friday coming up, which unfortunately for it's going up against Terrifier 3.
Yeah.
Which my cinema is showing Terrifier 3. They're not showing Salem's Lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of buzz around Terrifier 3, though. I mean, the social media for that's just crazy. It's like I've seen people on my Facebook going, is there any way to stop Terrifier 3 posting, showing up on my feed? So they're everywhere, which is exactly what you want to do. I haven't seen any for Salem's Lot, but what's your thoughts on the Terror? I'm guessing you like them if you can't wait for the third one, but what's your thoughts overall on 1, 2 and the Terrifier series?
Well, technically, All Hallows Eve and the prequel to All Hallows Eve, because that's where Art the Clown shows.
Okay.
So Terrifier isn't the origins of Art the Clown. It is the All Hallows Eve. So All Hallows Eve came out in 2012, and there's a film where he shows up. I think it's a part of a portmanteau movie, very similar to VHS kind of thing, where the character of Art the Clown shows up in that as well. So those are the starting points of Art the Clown. And then Terrifier is the first film featuring Art the Clown, which it was one of those films that I watched because I had Now TV Film for a month, because I got it for free for 1 month, and it was on there. And so I watched it and thought, oh, this is quite fun. Couple of decent kills in this film, stupid characters, acting's awful, very, very low budget, fine. Sequel, over the top insanity gore, especially the bedroom scene. That bedroom scene is genius. You think nobody could survive anything that happens to her in that bedroom scene, but it's played for sillies. The biggest problem for me with that film is it's way too long.
It's like 2.5 hours or something crazy.
Close to 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
The third one is just over 2 hours.
Right.
So he's reeled it back a little bit, Damien Leone. He has said there is a fourth one. He's going to see about doing a fourth one.
Of course he is.
Definitely. Yeah. But I can't wait, because I know the kind of film I'm expecting. I'm expecting an absolutely stupid film with insane gore. But it's the chance to see that kind of film on the big screen, because how often do you get the chance to see something like that on the big screen? It's pretty much nigh on the never. And I cannot wait because of that. So I booked my ticket to see it. I've already booked my ticket to go and see it, and I'm seeing it on the opening night. The only showing they have is 10 to 9 in the evening. And I can't have stupid teenagers in there, because it's definitely an 18-rated film.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard, what I'm liking, though, is the fact that I've seen no spoilers. The amount of stuff on TikTok that I've seen people review the film and stuff like that, I've seen they've spoiled nothing.
It's the way they should be.
They've just said the first 10 minutes is nastily violent, which is at the premiere in London a couple of days ago. A couple of 8 people walked out.
Does that make any sense to you? It doesn't make any sense to me that somebody would go watch. I mean, if they did it with Terrifier 1, I get it, because you don't know what you're going to expect. But it's the third movie in an insane trilogy. Surely you know what you're going to expect, or you're probably going to see in that. So why would you walk out unless they were like +1s for some VIP thing or
probably
something?
All I know about the opening 10 minutes is that it involves at least a kid or a few kids getting killed. And so the way my brain's putting that together is, if you've watched the trailer, there's a scene where Art the Clown is wearing a Santa's outfit in a mall, and a couple of kids come and sit on his lap, and it cuts away because you hear a crunch in the background. So I think that's where the film is going to open up, in the mall, and kids are going to get absolutely slaughtered with an axe. And as sadistic as it sounds, I'm here for that.
Yeah, because it's a film, isn't it? It's not a documentary you're watching. So, yeah.
So, I can't wait for it. And then VHS Beyond, which is the latest VHS film. It's on Shudder. It's brilliant. I really liked it. It slows down a little bit. The wraparound is not very good. It's the weakest part. It's the best VHS film since the second one. It opens up completely insanity. Cops go to this house. Lots of alien nasty things are in there. You see a lot of and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's good from that. And then you've got one which is directed by Justin Long. One of the ones, and Katie Siegel has done one with Mike Flanagan alongside him. Fur Babies is the Justin Long one, it was very short, a very good idea, but it's a really fun film. It's on Shudder now.
Yeah.
Now on to the 3 that I think you're probably interested in. I'll start with the first one, Hellboy and the Crooked Man. So the latest Hellboy film.
Yeah.
We got it before America, because America is not getting the theatrical release of it. So ironically, it's happening the other way around. Because normally they get the theatrical release, we get it straight to streaming. We got the theatrical release, they get it straight to streaming. So I've seen it. It's a good idea in a bad film. So the guy who plays the new Hellboy, he's okay, has absolutely no emotions whatsoever. Even David Harbour and Ron Perlman has emotions under that makeup. The playful nature of Hellboy, the sarcastic quips. All this guy has is a few slight sarcastic quips, and that's it. I like the idea behind it, and the fact that it was a very smaller version of a Hellboy film set in a very enclosed area. The premise, a big, huge, massive spider, which they're trying to ship across the country on a train. The train crashes, the spider gets loose. They need to try and find the spider. They're in the middle of nowhere and get embroiled in a sort of like a witch kind of crooked man situation. The Crooked Man is an evil being which Hellboy has faced up against in the past and has had made trouble against him. It's a lot more darker, so I like that idea, but everything else it does is rubbish.
It's like Hellboy's just a weird character. I like the first two films. Well, to be fair, they're the only two films of the Hellboy ones I've seen. I didn't watch the Neil Marshall one, and I've not seen this new one. I just don't. It's not a character where I'm like, oh, I want to see more of that character, or I want to watch that character. Hellboy's an odd thing to make movies on.
Yeah, I sort of like, again, pat them on the back for them to decide to go down this route to make it a much more contained film, because Hellboy, yes, the way we've seen it from the Del Toro side of things, he's the sarcastic, quippy kind of person at the end of the world situation where it's big explosions and huge, massive set pieces. But to have the braveness to send it on one of the comic books, which it's written by Mike Mignola, who did the comic books and created the character of Hellboy. And so to do it where it's a lot more encased kind of story, it's a smart idea to actually do, because it shows the horror side of it. We've seen the action side, so to show the horror side of it is a good idea, because it isn't just all about those huge, massive set pieces. So that was where the film worked. The rest just didn't work at all, because there's no tension in it. A lot of the scenes are badly shot because it's so dark you can barely see anything. And then the CGI is awful. There is a few scenes which is overly CGI heavy, and it's just awful to look at. Considering it's directed by one of the directors behind Crank, so Neville and Taylor. It's directed by one of those directors. You would expect a little bit more frantic nature to it.
Yeah, a bit more kinetic. Yep.
It doesn't have it. So it's just a no.
I think I'm planning on skipping that one anyway, because it's just like, I've never really been, Hellboy. I think the only reason I watched the original first two was because of Del Toro and Ron Perlman. I'm like, well, I like those guys, so I'll check it out. And I like the first two movies, but anything beyond that, I've not really been too bothered about.
I'm surprised, considering that I would have thought you would have went, let's watch the new one, because it's directed by Neil Marshall, and I really like Neil Marshall.
Yeah, I like older Neil Marshall.
Yeah,
your Descent and your Dog Soldiers and stuff, but it's like some of his new stuff, I don't know whether they're just not getting the budgets for it, or whether it's just a case of they're not very good. So I've kind of
very good. That's it.
Dropped off the. Yeah. And I was supposed to interview Neil Marshall at one point, and he cancelled, so I'm a little bit like, sod you then. You're not gonna sit down with me. I have met him very briefly. But yeah, I'm like, oh no, I'm not watching your films then. So, but no, that's not the reason. It's just he's a bit like, we talked about Tim Burton before, where it's like early Tim Burton, really good, and then they sort of drop off the boil for whatever reason. I think Neil Marshall has kind of done that, which is a shame, because he showed a lot of a promise back in the day of Doomsday and Dog Soldiers, and I would really get excited about a new Neil Marshall film, but not so much nowadays, unfortunately.
Same here. And then the last two. We are on to my last two. I'm going to let you choose. Which one do you want to hear first? About Megalopolis or Joker Folie à Deux?
It's like, do you want not good or not good? Megalopolis. We'll go for Megalopolis, which is a film I do want to watch. I like Francis Ford Coppola. I'm hoping it's going to be one of those films that the internet hates, because the internet does hate it, but I watch it and I go, do you know what? I like it. I'm hoping it's going to be one of those, but who knows? I think it's really ballsy that he's put his own money into it. I know for a fact he's wanted to make this film for decades, and I'm really happy that he's managed to make it. Whether it's any good or not, I don't know. I'll find out in a minute whether you liked it or not, but I'm genuinely happy that he's managed to finally make his masterpiece. Whether it's turned out the way that he wanted it to is another question. But yeah, God, hit me with your thoughts on Megalopolis.
From straight out the back, it's utter garbage. It literally is utter garbage. It definitely feels like, the way I described it in my pithy 140 character Twitter review, was the fact that it's 40 years of ideas that he's pulled out of his own arse. The way he's gone and constructed the film, it was like he came up with an idea for something, and then he's filmed the idea, and then he's just kept on doing that over the 40 years. Every single time he's come up with an idea, he's filmed the idea, and then he's decided to watch those little short films back that he's gone and created for the ideas that he's gone, and just squish them all together.
Right.
It's an idea film with absolutely no decent construct behind it at all. There's no thought behind it. There's no structure behind it. There's just nothing behind it, because it feels like he has just gone and thrown everything at the wall and just filmed everything rather than picked and choose what makes sense. To set it around, to take sort of like the Roman Empire as a sort of like a blueprint is an interesting thing to do. To take it more into a modern day kind of feel, it's very similar to what Baz Luhrmann did with Romeo and Juliet. It's sort of like take the ideas behind Romeo and Juliet and sort of like modernize it, make the musical kind of thing that he did. Coppola has gone and sort of like done this with Megalopolis. He's took the idea of the ancient Romans and all that kind of stuff and went, let's futuristic, make it futuristic, set it in a time frame which is not, you're not sure what exactly the time frame is, but let's do that, and let's take all of these ideas of the Colossus and all the fighting between them, the war between different factions and things like that, and let's just do that. That was the sort of like the idea that he's gone and done, but the overall feel of the film itself is so awkwardly rubbish. Like everybody involved just feels like they feel sort of like scratching at their own skin as to why the hell are we here? Like the dialogue is so badly constructed and badly written. It feels not like somebody at the end of his directing life cycle, not even somebody who's at the start, just somebody who was spitballing in a coffee shop one day where they just thought, oh, I've come up with an idea and write it down on a napkin. And that napkin's now got coffee stains all over it, and so everything is melded together in a big, massive meld of rubbish. It's awful. It is truly, truly awful. It's such a headache of a film. Like nothing makes sense. Absolutely
How
nothing.
long is it? Because it feels to me like that sort of type of film needs to be your 2.5, 2 hour, 40-minute
2
type
hours,
movie.
20 minutes.
Is it? So it feels like it should be that length. I'd be quite disappointed if it was 100 minutes. I mean, you wouldn't, because you've got an extra 100 minutes to do good things after that. But it feels like it should be an epic movie.
It's not. He thinks that he's created an epic film when he's created more like an epic headache of a movie. Like even now, some of the dialogue is being memed. There is a couple of Adam Driver scenes, especially one scene involving Adam Driver where it's being memed. There's another scene involving Adam Driver where he goes completely off the wall in a dance sequence. And it is so just I was watching it go, what the freaking hell is happening here? You just you just scratch your head because he's going insane in this dance sequence-esque, which is not meant to be a dance sequence. Like, even with somebody as good as Aubrey Plaza, her dialogue feels so wooden. Like somebody's just standing there with cue cards going, this is what you've got to say, just say this line. And she isn't even looking at the card, she just forgets and then looks up and go, oh, and then says a line.
Do you think that Coppola watches this back and he's like, not watches this back, but watches Megalopolis back, and he's like, I get it, everything I wanted to do is on screen? Or do you think he looks at it and thinks didn't quite work?
No, he's going to be so proud of it because he made it only for himself. Because it feels, as I said, when I said it was 40 years of ideas, which I feel like he's taken every single one of those ideas and filmed it when he came up with the idea. It feels like he's created his own visual diary. That's all he's gone and done. He's looked over his entire career and decided to take elements from each one of the films that he's created and meshed it together into a sci-fi film, which from what I can understand, from what I've seen, it's a genre that he does not understand because he confuses himself with everything he is trying to do. Because even if you look at all the sort of like the categories that IMDb has put it in, they've put it down as an epic, sci-fi epic, tragedy, drama, fantasy, sci-fi. That's so many different words that you're trying to cram into what the film actually is. It's just an absolute mess. It's just honestly not constructed well at all. Easily his worst film. I'm not a huge Coppola fan anyway, but easily his worst film because I understand he spent all of his own money, 120 million. No wonder he had major trouble in getting distributors to release the films. Lionsgate came in pretty much at the last minute.
Well, Lionsgate are being paid, aren't they? So they're not at any financial loss whether this film doesn't make, and it's not made a lot of money. So I suspect it'll be on digital pretty damn fast. Yeah,
and the reaction to the film itself when it was shown at Cannes was not a very good reaction at all. Early screenings of it did not go well. But he doesn't care.
No.
because, as I said, he made the film for himself, and that's it. It's a film where he's going to watch it and be proud of it. Nobody else is.
And I quite like that. I like the fact that, because I've read a lot of books about that have had Coppola in over the years, and there's always been a mention of Megalopolis, that he's always wanted to make it. Kubrick always wanted to do a Napoleon one, and he always wanted to do AI, which ended up being a Spielberg film. But it's nice when the fact that Coppola has managed to make this thing, and I genuinely do hope he looks at it. He's like, well, I'm really happy with it, because he paid for it. So, but unfortunately, people going to cinema also paid for it. So, kind of sucks for them, doesn't it? But I hated Bram Stoker's Dracula when it first came out. Hated
it's worse than Bram Stoker's Dracula.
And I like Bram Stoker's Dracula now. Didn't like Apocalypse Now when I first saw it. I'm like, this ain't Platoon. But now I really love Apocalypse Now. So I don't know what I'll think of Megalopolis. I will watch it, but you know,
it's utter garbage, absolutely utter garbage. So I'm in the utter garbage camp.
So let's go for Joker Folie à Deux, aka Joker 2.
Which the way my brain actually sort of like constructed my thoughts in regards to Joker Folie à Deux is, imagine if you and a few friends have decided to book a nice meal at a restaurant. It's a really good restaurant. It's not like one of the top end restaurants, but it's a really good quality restaurant. And so you're expected to go there and enjoy the food. Like, it's a 3-course meal that you're going to have and you're going to enjoy it. And so you order your meals. Everybody's having soup to start off with, just so you can actually get yourself prepared. And the waiter comes out with a bowl of hot water.
Yeah, I've been to that restaurant.
And then the main course, you decide to go, oh, the chicken wings that other people are having, they look really tasty. And they come out with a plate of bones. There's no meat on those bones at all. They've just left it, and they've just given you the bones. And then the dessert that they come out with, you're expecting to have this really fancy dessert, when in fact they've bought store-bought cakes. That's it. There's no thought behind what they're actually bringing out. There's no substance behind what they're actually bringing out. That's exactly how Joker Folie à Deux is for me.
Hot water, bones, and store-bought cakes. Yeah.
Yes, there is no substance behind the 2 hours and 20 minutes of the film itself. The way it opens with potential. Because to have Joker in jail, because it opens pretty much the way the original film ended. Joker's in jail, he's about to go up for trial.
Yeah.
He comes across the character of Harley Quinn, played by Lady Gaga. She's in the same prison where he is. You discover as to why she's there. As soon as their eyes meet, when he's walking past the choir room one day, that's when their relationship pretty much begins. He then gets put into this choir room, and that's where the relationship fully starts. That's an okay enough start. There is a tiny little bit behind each one of the characters, and then the rest of the film is the courtroom drama stuff. Nothing happens in the entirety of the movie, apart from the fact that they intersperse it with musical numbers.
Which make no connection to the actual overall story. I've heard. Yeah.
There are times where it sort of does, because they burst out into a musical number and then somebody goes, so, because he's starting a conversation and they're expecting the rest of the conversation to actually follow. And he doesn't. He pretty much bursts out in a musical number. The way I'm guessing Todd Phillips looks at the musical numbers is because he's a fractured person. He has 2 different personalities. We've got the Joker, we've got his normal personality. The musical numbers is the Joker stuff. That's him switching to his Joker personality, and that's where the musical numbers come from. You would think that that's where it goes, but I don't think Todd Phillips is smart enough to even actually connect those dots together in his own film.
Which is weird, because it's like, I've only seen Joker, the first one, once, and I enjoyed it. I quite liked it, but I'm like, I don't feel a need to rewatch it. I wasn't devastated when Joaquin won the Oscar. I'm like, okay, it's fair enough, I get it, because his performance was really good in the role. Is his performance in the second one the same performance as the first one, or is it just no?
It's for the start, for the first 10, 15 minutes. It sort of is, but after that, he's given absolutely nothing to do. There is no times where, because his craziness is shown in these musical numbers. Like in the trailer, you might have seen a scene where he smacks a judge across the head with a mallet. Yeah. That's told in sort of like a dream kind of sequence in a way. And so the violence has got no connection to to the film itself, to the stuff that happens in the courtrooms, to the stuff that happens in the prison. There is nothing there. So even though Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga are trying their best, they've got a very, very underwritten script to actually work with. Like, the script is so bare bones. There's very little to pick from it. There is no character development from the first film. There is very little character development for Harley Quinn. She is, you're told something that's happened in her past in a very brief conversation, and that's it. Because there is supposedly a connection between both Joker and Harley Quinn. They have something similar that's happened, and that's told in one conversation, and then that's it. And they try the hardest with a very, very underwritten script. It's such a bare bones movie for a film that's on for 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Which is also crazy because the first film did over $1 billion. So you think they would really put the effort in to make number 2 good. And from all accounts, number 2 is not going to make half of that. If
the first one made that money because of word of mouth, because people were surprised as to when they actually came out of Joker that it was the film that they probably didn't expect it to be, that they didn't see that side of Joker before. Like, there is a more human element, because Joker has always got the fantastical clown kind of element to it. If you looked at how he's been played in the past, apart from Heath Ledger's version of the Joker, which is the most broken version, best version by far, I still think, because he was such a broken person. The way Heath Ledger played it, the way Joaquin Phoenix does is a more human element to him, and a little bit of fractured element to him. And I thought he did an okay enough job in the first one, even though I didn't overly like the film. And this one, as I said, he's got pretty much nothing to do. He's picking at the scraps of, I would probably say he's picking at the scraps of the leftovers from the first film. Like, the stuff that they potentially could have included or easily included in the first film might have made it a tiny little bit more longer, maybe 2.5 hours. You could have had a courtroom bit in that. But they've decided to take courtroom stuff and make it a half, maybe even 2/3 of a film.
Because it's been, when did the first one come out? Was it 2019 or something? So you think, well, like 5 years, nearly 6 years, and you're like, that's what you've come up with? It's quite, for a film that made that much money, you'd think they might have, something's gone wrong clearly.
I think
on the road to this.
I think Phillips maybe's had an idea of making a jukebox musical, because that's what this is. It's a jukebox musical, because all the original stuff, Lady Gaga's released an album alongside it, which I don't listen to her musical stuff anyway, because it's not my cup of tea. But I've got a feeling that Phillips had an idea of a jukebox musical, and the studio desperately wanted to make a sequel to Joker before actually people started to forget about it, because the longer you wait, the less money it's going to actually bring in. This is not going to hit $1 billion. It won't hit $1 billion, because a lot of people have gone to see it. In the first year, it might hit a couple of 100 million. But a lot of people who've come out of it from the first few years have said that it's not a good film. Like, its Metacritic score is lower than the first one. Its critic score by people who've gone to see it is a lot lower than the first one. I think it's sitting somewhere in the region around about 38, whereas the first one sat there around about 51. So it's the audience score. So it's a lot lower than that. And I think they're going to say that this is such an empty film. It's a 2 hour, 20-minute film where pretty much nothing happens in it.
Yeah.
So it's dull as dishwater.
Whereas we could watch The Moors like 5 times in that 2 hours and 20. I mean, I like The Moors, but I'm not going to watch it 5 times in a row. So sorry, Adam. But
I think Adam will probably think that there's something seriously wrong with us if we actually watch it 5 times in a row himself.
Yeah, probably.
Anyway, so.
Yeah, there's not many films I would watch 5 times in a row. There are some films I would, but just it's a very short list. So